public affairs, politics, opinions, and discussion. This is The Issue on your TV. I'm Mark Carr. My co-host today is someone I've known for years. And you know her from her many shows here on your TV, my friend, Deb Tymstra. Deb, how are you and the family doing under COVID?
Yeah, with COVID, we're good. We were happy to hear that, there is actually a plan to reopen and to get ourselves out in the outdoors and actually see people that we might recognize from years past. It seems that's what it feels like.
From years past, yeah.
That's what it feels
Have
like.
You had your vaccination yet?
Yes, we've had our first one, and as you know, it was announced recently that in Halton, you can go on and maybe push your second one up, reschedule your second one. So we're hoping to do that.
You have brought an interesting guest on.
Yes, I have.
And so I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our special guest. Special particularly to you, Deb.
Yes, very, very special to me. He's probably the one of the two very special men in my life. And he's probably he was the most important baby in my life. No, he is not my son. He is my little brother. His name is Richard Martyn, and I'm so happy that he's able to join us today. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Deb.
So Richard, I just love him. Look at that cute face. I just love it. I'm going to make you turn red, Rich. I want to embarrass you a little bit.
I have a pinkish hue to begin with. It's just fine.
He's so cute. He's so cute. So it's okay. Signage just fell down. We don't need to worry about that. Live television or so. So Richard has a really interesting story, Mark, because, this TV thing actually does go a little bit farther in our family, in that Richard was the series producer for Mighty Ships and Mighty Cruise Ships after quite a history with TVO and so on and so forth. And of course, when COVID hit, the shipping industry, cruising industry came to a dead halt, right? We all know that. Yeah. And of course, everybody who was in that industry was affected. But, it's hard to remember that even like the television side of that was affected in that particular industry. Now, we know television was obviously affected with COVID, but Richard had to make a choice at that time about whether he was going to sit around and wait for COVID to sort of allow him to go back into television, or if he was going to kind of go on with something else. And Richard, you did a lot of soul searching to figure out how you were going to go forward. I mean, you have 4 beautiful daughters and a wife, and a family to think about. So tell your story.
Well, I was actually on a cruise ship. I stepped off a cruise ship on March 7th or March 9th of 2020, like 6 days before the Ontario lockdown began, the first Ontario lockdown began. And at the time, there were 2 cruise ships that were in harbor, that were in port. Of course, there was Diamond Princess that was stuck in Asia, and there was another one that had been sort of quarantined on the west coast of the US. And so we had 2 shows shot for the new season of Mighty Cruise Ships, and we shut down, and we wrote those. Well, I wrote those 2 episodes. We got those 2 episodes put together, and I think they've now aired along with the new season. But basically in November of last year, my contract was up, and there just wasn't any production in sight. And I had been doing a lot of soul searching over the last probably 5 years. I really enjoyed the people I was working with, and I enjoyed Mighty Cruise Ships a lot. But I was wondering what else there was for me to do. And I was looking for, I think in the end, after 3 decades of helping other people tell their stories, I started wondering about what were the stories that I wanted to tell, and maybe that was there a way of me creating stories for other people. So my birthday in August last year, my oldest daughter, Rebecca, gave me a little book, and it says on the front, "Life is a journey, take notes along the way." And she wrote a little note of inspiration on the inside. And I won't read the whole thing, but she said, "I wanted this to be a place for you to write down ideas, brainstorms, and plans about anything you're passionate about. So here it is, a journal. You're creative and smart, and I have all the confidence in the world that whatever you choose to do next will exceed all expectations." Well, that's a challenge, isn't it? I mean, a moment like that, you think, okay, maybe I did some good in raising your kid. And I started a page that said passions, what moves me. And two of the things that move me are adventure and relationships. And so I started thinking about projects that I wanted to do related to those things.
And, oh, Mark, I can see you. You're like,
no, I'm just listening because Rich, you told us before the show began, you had another career in radio, and that fell apart, and you had to reinvent yourself. Yeah. At that time, and so you're doing it again.
Oh, well, I mean, 30 years in television, you reinvent yourself over and over again. I mean, you can't. I remember at one point I had somebody, I was interviewing for a job, and the head of the production company was looking at my CV, and he said, "Well, you've done decorating shows, and you've done documentary, and you've done journalism, and you've done food shows. What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to feed my family." When you work in television in Canada, especially if you're not working on the dramatic side, well, even if you are working on the dramatic side, you're going to move into the factual side at some point. So when you work, as I did, exclusively in the factual side of all media, you have to be willing to take on all subject matter. And so, yeah, over my career, I did food, and I did relationships, and I did money shows, and I did biographical and investigative documentary. I did all sorts of stuff, but the common thread was storytelling. And lately, a lot of the stories that I've been telling have revolved around sort of the two passions in my life, which are cycling, road cycling in particular, and gravel road cycling as well, and relationships, and the search for sort of identity, raising your kids, and all of those sorts of things.
And because you know how to do these things, unlike your big sister, you decided that you were going to sort of Mark, be quiet. You were going to kind of explore that whole thing about relationships in podcasts, which I do not understand, but I did participate in.
You did?
I did.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not on air, and that's good. So tell us about searching for Atticus. Mark, what's Atticus, Mark? Searching for Atticus. What's Atticus? Do you know what Atticus is?
No, I'm going to let Rich tell us.
So a couple of years ago, I was chatting with the narrator for Mighty Cruise Ships, and we were talking about podcasts. She was starting up a podcast, and she was producing a podcast as well. And she said, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, if you did one, what would you do? And I said, well, I have these conversations with my two best friends, and the three of us all grew up without fathers in our lives. And so whenever we get together, we inevitably start talking about what does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a dad? What does it mean to be a friend and a husband? So we finally got around to actually starting a podcast. It's called Searching for Atticus. Atticus is Atticus Finch.
Finch.
In To Kill a Mockingbird, right there. You can see over my shoulder. Because the character of Atticus Finch In To Kill a Mockingbird is really, I think, the ideal for what a man should be. You know, he's very principled, he's kind, he is patient with everybody in his life, and especially with his children. And he also creates these standards for his children, where he treats them as adults. He treats them very maturely. In the book, Scout, the daughter, gets in trouble with her teacher because she's going to school at age 6 and she already knows how to read. She knows how to read very well, and they want her to read these books that are well below her level. So my friends Blake, Kofi, and I, what we do is we watch a movie that touches on issues of fatherhood or friendship or love, and we discuss the movie and what do the moments and themes in that movie, how do they resonate with our own experiences. So we produce a new podcast every 2 weeks. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every purveyor of podcasts that there is. And, you know, we have a lot of fun. We laugh. We've actually occasionally choked up as well in the 10 episodes that we've recorded so far. And then what we also do is, and this is where Deb comes in, we record on the off weeks, we'll record what we call an Atticus journal. And that's a reflection on something that we touched on the previous week. So with Deb, what we did was we had done a movie called Hope and Glory, and I was wondering about how our mother would look at these times. What would mom say right now? And of course, our mom passed away in 2013, and we can't really ask her, but I could call up my sisters and say, what's the one little gem of advice that mom offered you that you carry with you in these times? So I talked to each of my sisters and trimmed that down and put it together, and I think it worked pretty nicely.
Yeah.
So that's the relationship side of what I'm trying to pursue is podcasts are a very, very long game. It takes a long time to build an audience. It takes a long time it takes an even longer time before you get revenue out of it. But I thought, I want to put this out in the world. These are conversations that my buddies and I are having anyway. And in the broader conversations I have with other friends of mine, the feedback that we get is, yeah, these are things that I think about too. And it's really good to hear you guys discuss it because it helps me measure my own performance as a friend, husband, father.
Rich, that whole relationship idea is so foreign normally to the male gender. So no, but I'm glad that somebody is breaking that glass ceiling, if you will, and bringing those relationship issues to a podcast. And I know that podcasts do take a long time to achieve their eventual goal, but I think the podcasts start out of a burning desire of the individuals to bring something forward, and I'm so glad that you're bringing this forward for the male gender and for the female gender.
Yeah, and that's what we found, right? Is we'll get feedback from women as well who say, "This is great. This gives me some insight into what my partner's thinking, or how I'm raising my son." You know, that's the other thing is we're hoping. It's funny, we have older men who are listening to it, guys who are my age, who are in that zone of how am I doing? How have I been performing? And we actually have sort of 20 something guys who don't have any kids, who might not even be married yet, but they're starting to think about some of these things. I think it's changing. I think overall that the idea, I think there's a greater openness to talk about your weaknesses. Look, it's not a sob fest. We're not getting on. When I say we've choked up because there are scenes in some of these movies that are really powerful and they really resonate with us. And so those are the sorts of things. But we've also, so yes, we'll talk about a movie like Hope and Glory. The podcast I just put up in the last week is a movie called Big Fish, which is about fathers telling tall tales. We've done The Pursuit of Happiness, but we also recently recorded a podcast about The Empire Strikes Back and Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. We'll do silly movies, and then we'll dive in and see what are they actually getting at. So that's part of it. That's a big part of what I'm doing right now. And the other part that I'm doing is I'm trying to pursue adventure. That's the other thing.
So
and that leads us to the another aspect that you're involved with, another passion, which is cycling and gravel cycling. I didn't know there were sub genres to the cycling industry.
Man. Oh, there's all sorts of cycling going on. There's tons of it. I mean, you'll see most kids are riding mountain bikes or BMX bikes. A lot of people just have nice street bikes that they can pedal around, and that's great. I got into road cycling because I got heavily involved in charity rides right from the start. I think it's no secret to Deb, people who know Deb, that Deb is a breast cancer survivor. And I got involved in the Ride to Conquer Cancer when it started up. I rode the Ride to Conquer Cancer for 7 years, for the first 7 years that it existed.
With our sister and our niece. Yeah.
That's right. With Jane and Amy. And then a bunch of the guys along the way, I got involved with the cycling club, and a bunch of the guys were doing a different event called the Tour for Kids, which raises money for the 3 camps in Ontario for kids who have cancer. And that was a different event. The Ride to Conquer Cancer is an awesome event. You ride 200 kilometers over 2 days. And for new cyclists, that's a huge, huge effort. It's a huge accomplishment when you can do it. And you see massive numbers of people on all sorts of bikes doing it. Tour for Kids is a 3-day event. It's built a little bit more towards the avid cyclist. And by the time I started getting involved with that, a short ride for me, I rode 75 kilometers last night. Like that's not a long ride for me anymore.
But he didn't come for coffee to my house. I
didn't make it as far as your house.
We're
yes, I did not make it as far as your house.
No family fighting on this show, please.
So along the way, my friends and I started getting into what's called gravel cycling. So you're pretty familiar probably with a road bike. That's if you see highlights of any bicycle race, you're going to see downturn handlebars. Those bikes are pretty sleek machines. Well, a gravel bike is a bike that looks a lot like that, but it's just got heavier tires on it, and it's got a slightly different frame composition so that it can deal with some of the bumps in the road. Doesn't go fully like a mountain bike where they actually have shock absorbers, but it'll have it's a little bit built for a little bit more comfort on gravel roads. And the great thing about gravel riding is that the roads are super quiet. Like, one of the big challenges when you go out for a road ride is that you're riding on asphalt and you're often going to encounter cars. And look, motorists are by and large really, really respectful. But when you get out onto gravel roads, you suddenly get to ride without any traffic around. You see more horses and dogs and sheep and cows than you see cars. So it's a completely different experience. It's quiet, it's wonderful. Oftentimes the trees grow a little closer to the road, and so you get these great adventures.
So tell us about Gravelocity Cycling. Deb, you can talk to your brother at any time. I don't get an opportunity to do this. So tell me about Gravelocity Cycling.
Right. So what I've decided to do is I'm starting up a gravel cycling operation called Gravelocity. It is good wheels, good times, and abundant adventure. What we're doing is we're pairing 3-day gravel riding tours with luxury accommodation and delicious food. So the idea, you remember when you were a kid and you went out and you rode all day long, and all you had to do was be home in time for dinner or be home before the streetlights come on. That's the spirit that I'm trying to capture. I want you to come out. I want you to ride with us. And I want you to feel like you don't have a care in the world. The best rides that I've ever done in my life are the ones where at the end of it, I felt like I was 10 years old. I was pooped, but I was thrilled. You know, those were the best days of riding I've ever had in my life. And that's the spirit that I'm trying to capture with Gravelocity. So we're operating in 4 different communities in Southern Ontario. We're operating in Huron County, riding out of Goderich. We're riding out of Oxford County in Ingersoll. We're riding out of Fergus Elora, and we're riding out of Lakefield, which is in Peterborough County. And at each of those places, I found fantastic places to stay, a couple of which have spas right on site. So if you're a little sore at the end of the day, you get a little massage. They have great restaurants and beautiful food. And I'm also trying to pre-arrange bakery stops because butter tarts and coffee are the lifeblood of group riding in Ontario. So what I'm planning on doing is we'll place that bakery order in advance. So when we arrive there, the coffee's ready, the baked goods are out, and we can enjoy. So that's what the whole idea is.
Okay, sis, now you can throw in your question.
Oh, okay. And so can I ride on the back of your bike? Because, you know, I'm not a good cyclist, but, you know, I can be your cheering section. Do you need like somebody to follow in the car with water? Because
that would be great. I'd love to have you come out and do that with support vehicle. That'd be wonderful. It's helpful from time to time to have that.
Yeah. So people have to book this though, right?
Yeah, you have to book this. You have to go on to, you'll go on to www.gravelocity.bike. So it's like Travelocity, but with a T.
.bike?
.bike. Yeah. How about that, eh?
Yeah.
You can punch in gravelocity.ca. It'll still put you to the same place. But it's so yeah, you go on right now. The website's still being built. But you can go on and you can sign up for our mailing list, and I'll be sending out regular updates. We're starting tours in June. The first couple of tours are in Oxford County, riding out of the Elmhurst Inn and Spa in Ingersoll.
Yes.
And then the next week we're riding up in Huron County at the Ben Miller Inn and Spa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like in Goderich, which like I'm so happy that the both inns have been all the accommodation. We're at the Breadalbin Inn in Fergus, which is it's like British pub accommodation. 11 rooms around a pub. When we get a group in there, we're going to take over the whole place. Like that's it. We're gonna have, you know, that's what it's going to be like.
So are there any issues around the reopening or around COVID or around anything that you have like that you and your group have to be concerned about?
Well, we'll be adhering to all the protocols. So, I mean, I was really encouraged as well by the recent announcement about reopening because they're also targeting mid-June to do those openings. We know that outdoor activity is low transmission in general, especially if you're distance. Well, if you're on a bike, you are going to be 6 feet away from another person, right? The wheels and the handlebars, everything like that takes care of that. When we're stopped, we will be masking up if that's what the protocol demands, if that's what the province or the local health authority calls for. We do include a sort of what I'm calling a team dinner on the first night, just because I don't want you to have to think of anything on that first day of riding. You arrive, we ride, we do the bakery stop, we get back to the hotel, you check in, and then we're having dinner right on site. But if we have to split up in terms of, you know, to comply with the regulations, we'll be doing that. So that, you know, whatever we need to do to make sure that everybody stays safe and healthy, we're going to do that. We don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the escape, part of the solution, part of freeing people's minds. You know, there's a saying there is a saying among something called the rules in cycling, and one of the rules is supposed to be free your mind and your legs will follow. So the idea is don't think too much when you're riding. I'm turning it on its head. I say free your legs and your mind will follow.
Cool. Awesome.
Deb, I'm really impressed with the fact that you brought your brother on today. Now, tell us a quick little story about when he was much younger. And
Are you kidding me?
Hopefully, Deb, an embarrassing story.
Well, okay, so
Wait a second, isn't this supposed to work the other way where I'm supposed to tell the story that embarrasses your co-host?
Well, we're going to do it this way, Rich, this time. In about a minute, Deb, tell us.
Okay, so really quickly, we'll keep on the biking theme. So Richard kind of got into this whole biking thing because my sister Jane is a huge cyclist. She's the athlete of the family. Richard and Jane are the athletes, and Allie and I are not. And so we do other things. So Richard and Jane, Jane has not lived sort of in our area for a long, long time. And so she was here, and every time she comes here, she and Richard get out on their bikes and so on and so forth. So they were actually in the Niagara area.
Oh, I know this story. Yes, now I know this story.
Yeah, but you're going to have to fill in part of it because I don't.
Quickly.
So
I can tell it really quickly.
No. So the quick part is, I open my door, and there's Richard and there's Jane, and I'm looking at them. They're filthy dirty. There's blood all over them. I'm like, what on earth happened? And very quickly, Richard, you guys were riding, and
we were riding at Kelso. We crashed. I crashed. I stayed down while I took a personal inventory, and then I looked up at Jane, and she was bleeding from her knee. And I said, "What happened?" She said, "Oh, I crashed too."
Yeah.
So the worst part was that when we arrived at Deb's door, she saw Jane's leg bleeding, and then she looked right at me, like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "It wasn't even my idea."
I appreciate that. Thanks to Richard Martyn from Gravelocity Cycling, and to our co-host this week, Deb Tymstra. I'm Mark Carr, and you can watch The Issue Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. with repeats throughout the week on your TV. Truly local television. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.